Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about here today is how um, teen sexual and dating violence here in Indiana is like I see that I saw in a recent study that 14.9% of dating violence is when you're in senior in high school, and what would you say would reflect that here in for like an incoming freshman? Like, do you think that can relate over to freshmen here? Do you think it would increase,
Right.
decrease?
It would. I think what we have found out that as a state, in Indiana, the rates of dating abuse are higher than the national average. And that has been the trend in the past 10 years. So we have a problem here that's higher than the national average, and there are differences between students based on their age, race, and gender. And because we are not able to stop this behavior in high schools, the same students will then go to the college, and some of them will continue with this behavior. For example, the victims would consider that this is the norm and this is how it is, and they'll continue to have abusive relationships over time. And maybe in adulthood too, they'll have experience with domestic violence and consider it normal.
Yeah. So you said something about different races. So what do you see? Do you see it impacting more women, more or African Americans? How do you see that?
The non-serious kind of dating abuse, which is like just calling names,
Yep.
could be same in men and women, both males and females. But the more serious kind of abuse, like sexual abuse and severe physical abuse, would be common in females. They are more likely to be victimized.
Okay.
And in relation to race, I think the minority populations are more likely to be suffering in relationships. And those could be same race relationships. So it could be Hispanic male, Hispanic female, more likely to have abusive relationships than white male and white female.
Really? Well, that's pretty interesting. So, as for what do you see on college campuses then? How does that relate to college campuses? Do you think that instead of an overall Indiana look at it, if you were to just localize it here on campus, do you see that what your research has done? Do you see that correlating here on campus?
I've seen statistics from colleges across the nation, and I think once we have a student in high school, a group of students, and 15% say they have been abused, and then they move on to the college, overnight their abusive relationships won't stop and the prevalence will not reduce. So some of the abusive relationships will continue, or maybe they'll get into a new relationship and be abused again because they don't complain and they live with those abusive behaviors. So, for example, the amount of teenagers smoking in Indiana and throughout the nation, once they start that smoking behavior in high school, when they go to the college, they'll repeat the same behavior.
I think it increases.
And it increases. And then they have more freedom and privilege, and they get access to alcohol and tobacco, so the rates somehow increase.
And you say alcohol has an influence. Do you see that on college campuses that alcohol makes a difference?
Right, because I think has been consistent evidence that alcoholism is associated with abuse strongly, especially for women. If they are intoxicated, the chances of being abused are higher. So violence in a relationship in teenage and college students is associated with some other risk behaviors like drug use, alcohol use, being violent in general, having other types of violent behaviors. And these are the high risk people. Even in a college, if you look at a bunch of students who have problem behaviors, many of them have many problem behaviors. They don't just have one. So severe alcoholic students also have relationship issues, tobacco use issues.
Mm-hmm.
So they have multiple risks.